It's time for even more Ola Shamian, but before that, we got to tell you about 888 Poker, where you can use the code POKERGUYS to get a ton of great benefits.
Including for first-time depositors, deposit $10, get $20, also get $88 free, and a 100% deposit bonus up to $400.
If you guys are watching this video when it comes out in 2 days, January 29th, we have a free roll, and here's the password. Poker1Guys. See you there.
Poker1Guys.
We have been doing a lot of Ola Shamian hands recently because that guy plays interesting poker. In this instance, he's in the super high roller heads up against another guy who plays really interesting poker, Mustafa Canit.
It's a 100K euro buy-in.
That's big money.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big deal. The effective stack is Canit with about 50 blinds. So that's cool too, and these guys are just two titans of industry going at it.
Maybe not industry, but certainly poker.
Yeah.
Now, Daniel Negreanu is doing the commentary, and he misses the pre-flop action.
Yeah.
He thinks Ola raises and Mustafa calls, where in fact Ola limps and Mustafa raises, and that messes up everything Daniel says, so mostly disregard that.
Yeah, in fact, completely disregard it. That'd be even better, right? This hand was suggested to us on Twitter by Alexander Richmond. If you have a suggestion for the breakdown, tweet it at us and include a time-stamped YouTube link.
We're going to break this hand down as we go, so get ready for some analysis.
It's funny because it matters. It comes up because I was teaching poker at an event a month ago, and it was like all these beginning players, and they were all trying to do crazy stuff. Like, yeah, well, you got to re-raise here, right? Position, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, just chill. Chillax. Just have good cards. When you get good cards, raise. When you don't, fold. Start there, and then we'll go from there. They thought that they had to. So you got to make a move, right? Huh?
It's what they saw on TV.
Yeah.
In fact, it's probably your fault.
I don't do that stuff. Maybe it was some of the other young guns.
So this is ace-5 against 10-7. Shamian called. Canit raised out of the big blind with 10-7. Shamian calls in position. Still has the best hand with ace-high. Canit set to continue.
This is interesting. You don't see a lot of players do this, but Canit has a little bit already. You know, when you're in the out of position on a board like that, typically the play is to check. Now he's decided he wants to take control of it with a lead here, and Oli's going to call with ace high. The question is, will he call 3 streets with it? That's a great card for Oli, because even if he is beat, that's just giving him more outs with a deuce, a 7, and presumably an ace if Canit has something like Jack Queen. Canit, he was just taking a stab. I don't know that he's going to try to win this pot with 3 bets. Although he does himself now have a gut shot. You know, he can catch a 5 for a straight. Yeah, so if you're going to incorporate leads in spots like this, you better have a plan.
Yeah.
And you better have a way of balancing it. Otherwise, it's very exploitable. Mustafa's a high-level player who understands how people perceive leads, so he can go to that level. For most people, I highly advise don't try that at home.
And just to be clear, have a plan, but to go back to what you were saying a couple of hands ago, be prepared. It's okay to change that plan.
For sure, yeah. So now he's put himself in a situation where Shamian has to think he's got to have something. You know, he didn't just lead the swap and the turn with nothing. So either he's on a draw or he's got me beat for now. The question is, am I priced in here to call anyway? You know, maybe not just with the value of ace high in a showdown situation, but to draw to the hand. 875 to win 2.5 million. He says sure.
All right, just to reiterate, Daniel missed the pre-flop action, so everything he's saying about Mustafa leading does not apply at all.
No.
It is completely not applicable to this hand. Mustafa is playing in flow. He raised pre-flop, bet the flop, bet the turn.
Right, so all the story, all the things,
Yeah.
just wrong.
Yeah.
But let's rewind ourselves now back to the flop play for a second anyway. Mustafa, we'd fully expect to continue here.
Right, I mean, it's a very dry board. He raised big pre-flop. Obviously, part of that is if I get called, I win a bigger pot when my opponent misses, and I just win the pot.
It seems weird to raise and then just give up when you're raising with 10-7 specifically.
It's a weird hand to raise in the first place, so you might as well continue here.
Yeah, you don't have any showdown value. You never did have any showdown value. Okay, so Ola, of course, decides to call. He's getting a great price on this flop.
Yeah, part of it is that Mustafa only bets 350 into 930.
Absolutely. Ola also, though, has not only ace high, but he's got a bunch of cards that are pretty good for him on the turn.
Decent cards.
Were they to come.
Yeah.
A 4, which is actually what comes, is one of the best cards for sure. An ace is obviously a good card. A 5 doesn't suck either.
Right, but a lot of it also is that he knows Mustafa is very aggressive and ace high could be good.
Yes.
It's going to suck later if we have to keep heroing, but good cards can come, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And guess what? The turn's a good card.
Good card.
And Mustafa bets this card after getting called on the flop, which is ambitious.
It's ambitious.
Yeah.
I personally believe, and Grant thinks it's probable as well, that Mustafa is much more likely to bet this card because he picks up equity. He picks up a gut shot.
Yeah.
And Mustafa probably thinks some of the times a 10 or a 7 is good here.
Sometimes, yeah.
And that seems very likely. And we know that that's true. Not a 7, I guess, on the river. And certainly a 5 makes him a straight, and he's going to feel really good about that too. And Mustafa doesn't feel like he can check call with 10-7 and only a gut shot.
Right.
So if he wants to continue in this hand, he wants to bet so he gets to continue with some fold equity, but although he probably expects to get called a lot, quite frankly.
He does probably expect to get called a lot, so he might be planning on a triple barrel here.
Yeah.
So now we're Ola, and we picked up the open-ender. And we're getting 3-1.
Right.
Which is not a good enough price with an open-ender going towards the river. So we have to think, if we're going to call here, which Ola does, that we are sometimes good. That sometimes we're good here, and we can hero the river too. Because if we are good, a bet is going in on the river. Mustafa is not going to give up on the river.
Very unlikely
Yeah.
that Mustafa would give up. Now, one other thing to say though, while 3-1 is not an incredible price because we have the open and straight draw, and that's not good enough alone. We also have 3 aces, and some of those might be good.
They might be.
Meaning some of them, meaning like either they're good or not, of course.
I mean, it could also be really bad.
Absolutely. Mustafa could have ace jack and then get crazy value. That's true.
So the plan is Ola is, okay, this guy's kind of crazy. I guess I'm going to call.
Yeah.
Hopefully I improve, and if I don't, I'm Ola freaking Shemian. I'm going to figure it out.
It seems a little absurd to call the flop, hit one of your best possible cards, and then fold the turn.
Of course. Makes sense.
Shemian calls, and this is, I think, the biggest pot of heads-up play so far, nearly 3.4 million.
All right, that didn't change anything. So now will be a question of, does Connacht have the heart to fire a third bullet here with 3.3 million in the pot, and would Shemian have the heart to actually see through this bluff and make the call?
We saw Shemian make a huge call earlier on with just ace high.
You know, you have to think that Connacht didn't just expect to bet and win this pot. He probably thinks in his head, he's like, I knew that I have to fire this 3 times when I got called in the flop. The question is, should I? And, you know, not much change for Oli as well. Like, if he was in front on the turn, that 3 didn't change anything. So he's still in front. That card was not a terrible card for him. Well, he's going for it. Bullet number 3, ready to fire. Question is, how big? A really big bet here puts Shemian in a tough spot. If he bets like 2.5 million, that would be tough to call with just ace high. But Oli does know Mustafa is capable of very creative bluffs, as this one is here. 3 barrels with nothing.
1,950,000.
So he's bet almost 2 million. And that's a huge percentage of Mustafa's, you know, stack here. If Oli makes this call and wins, he's gonna have a big lead.
Must be exhausting.
Is.
Every single hand.
Especially when you play against guys who put the pressure on you, like Mustafa. Against a lot of players, this would be an easy fold because you know they just don't have it in them. Mustafa, it's not. Can't figure out, like, what is he betting? And you know, the worst thing about Oli's hand is he may call in his mind and say, and Mustafa might say, you got it, I just have ace high. It's like, oops, your ace 9 beats me. Because he has called.
Wow.
What a great call.
That is a great call by Ola Shemian by result. We're going to talk about the theory behind the call and try to figure out if it's good in a second.
Yeah.
But one thing we haven't told you about that might make it a bit of an easier call is that they made a deal. And they're only playing for 50,000 euros, which is obviously just what they have in their pockets, basically.
I mean, it's nothing, right?
Yeah.
You buy a banana in Monte Carlo for 50k euro.
No, I mean, they definitely care. So it might make it easier for Ola, but these guys are hyper competitive. They care about winning, and they do care about 50,000 euros. That's significant money. But it might be a factor in the call. But let's get to the gameplay here and see if Ola should be making this call.
So Mustafa decides to bet this river, not surprisingly.
No.
If he's going to continue on the turn because he picks up some equity, and we think that's at least one of the reasons why he continued on the turn, and then he bricks the river, some of the time he has to triple barrel.
Yeah.
This is a good card to do it, except for one thing.
Yeah,
right?
this is the problem. Ola has a lot more 3s in his range than Mustafa has in Mustafa's range.
Yeah.
So that has to be going through Ola's head immediately. He's thinking, that card should be better for me than for Mustafa. Why isn't Mustafa afraid of that card? Which leads to the question, would Mustafa bet a jack or an overpair on this river, or would he check with the intention of calling?
Right. So if Mustafa's betting his jacks and his overpairs, which of course he can have, even though Negreanu was talking about leading and all that, we know none of that makes sense because Negreanu missed the pre-flop action, then we probably can't call profitably with ace high.
No, if Mustafa bets Queen Jack here or King Jack, this is a theoretically terrible call because Mustafa's value range is crushing us. We're in too much trouble here. But if he only has straights and trips, then we can call, and that makes sense. And Ola must be thinking he usually just has straights and trips for value.
It's possible Ola's thinking about his life before he was trapped on the island and the volleyball floated away.
Yeah, right.
You know, Wilson!
Right, it's like maybe if I make this call, I can get back on the ship or the plane.
The plane. It was the plane. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, the plane's in the bottom of the sea.
It is now a ship.
Okay,
That's true.
yeah, we're gonna use the money to turn the plane into a ship. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So Ola though probably not thinking so much about Wilson the volleyball, but ultimately thinking, he can't really have a 3 very often. I have all the 3s. He's betting big.
Right.
So he's just too polarized here. And I don't have to worry about hands like ace-10, ace-queen, because those hands probably aren't going to bet.
No, they really aren't going to bet the river or the turn, probably. So we don't worry about those. What we do worry about is Mustafa being hyper elite and being able to value bet his jacks and his overpairs.
Yes.
That's what we need to worry about, because if he does, theoretically, this is a really bad call.
Indeed. If you want to hear our responses to our favorite comments from you on this video, click right up here.
As I said, we've been doing a lot of Ola hands recently.
Yes.
Check out one up there and another one up there again. There's 2 of them. Check them out.
Dang, man.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, they're good hands. Also, check out our podcast where we go into crazy detail about this hand. Boy, do we talk about
We go
ranges.
into the theory of what Mustafa should be doing on the river, what hands he should be betting for value, and what size he should be betting for value. And it gets really deep and really weird, and I'm not sure I even understand what I said.
I mean, if you want to hear us get in some pretzel twisted stuff, that's a good place to go for sure. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel.